Okay, folks, we'll pass you over to Phil. You're in good hands here. She's a very experienced trainer, lots of experience in fact, and delivering to quite a number of organisations. I think plus maybe more.
And that's only this year.
Yeah, that's only this year. Yeah. Okay.
So we're like a comedy duo of us.
And then we've got like Bill and Billy. There you go.
Yeah.
What do you got?
All right. Thank you. Okay. 0 hour yet? No. Okay. Only time for one joke before we start. What do you call a computer that sings? Computer that sings. Adele.
Oh my God!
Oh, yes. Actually, I specialise in granddad jokes. That's the most recent one I know. So, is Adele still singing? All right. Is that film time? Oh no, I've got time for another one. I can see I'm not getting a good response to that. So okay. So I will get started then.
I'm just making sure you're.
You just what?
I'm just making sure you're all good.
Yes. I think I am all good. So welcome everyone to the session this afternoon. I know it's been, for some of you it's been a long day. For some of you there's been some shocks, some insights. That's a whole joke. Not a joke, it's an insight. My session this afternoon is trying to go for about 45 minutes or so. It's called various things, but I call it a bit about the future of work because what I'm going to talk about is a particular new tool that Microsoft have brought out to help organisations with the issue of the fact that everyone is now working in diverse places at diverse times. So it's very hard to get everyone in the one place at the one time to work. And because of that, you have difficulty in making sure everyone's doing the work the right way. Okay. So I call this the future of work, identifying bottlenecks and best practices with a tool called the Process Advisor. So I'm going to take you through what that means and what we're really looking at there. Okay. For my sins, in a previous life, I used to be a business process analyst. Now, that's called many things over the years. It could be, it also is called an internal auditor. It was also called a time and motion study expert, or various things like this. I used to walk around with a green file, and everyone in the organisation would quake when they saw me coming, because it knew I was going to go and do things like ask them questions about how they were doing their work and map the processes of what they were doing and look to see if they were following the best practices and the procedures of the organisation. And you have that job, by the way? Yeah, there we go. You see, oh, good. Well, you'll be fine with this sort of stuff.
So my title is what I do lots of.
Yeah.
I'm auditor at the moment.
You're an auditor at the moment. Oh, lucky.
Not helping that.
Helping, right, yeah. But they probably don't give you a green files to walk around with. No. Never mind.
Digital now, isn't it? It's digital now, isn't it?
So what did a business process analyst do? Well, time and motion study. They look at how long it takes to do things, how people go about doing actions. They would interview people and say, how are you doing this process? Let me document everything that you're doing. Okay. They would then create processes and process maps, document processes, come up with a map to show people visually the steps they could go through. By the way, one of the best process map companies out there is Lego, because they write process maps for doing Lego that are understandable by anyone from any country in the world. You don't have to have any language written in it. You can follow the steps, as opposed to IKEA, but that's a different story. So anyway, so they create process maps, and that allows them to identify bottlenecks. Now, you all know what I mean by a bottleneck. Someone tell me what a bottleneck is. Yeah, so normally it's a point that slows the process down. It's a point where everything doesn't run smoothly, okay? And also, it helps to define, they help define best practices, looking at if in the organisation 10 people are doing things different ways, which is the best and most efficient way, and getting everyone to do that sort of job, okay? So, yeah, they're all pretty good things. To do them, in the past, required a lot of time, effort, documentation, put that information together. And it wasn't too hard to do if everyone was in the one place. But these days, everyone's not in the one place. And the aim of doing all of this is to really improve the efficiency of the organisation. All right. So nowadays, we've got the situation where Not everyone's in the same place. Everyone's working from different areas all the time. So how do we organise to work out what the best practice is? What's the most efficient way of working? If I don't know what people are doing, I mean, I know through Insights you can track some information, but it's not really going to tell you exactly how people are carrying out their actions. So really, this whole idea is evolving as we speak into these sorts of things. And all of these ideas can be done still, okay, by using a feature called Robotic Process Automation, or RPA. Has anyone come across this before? Do you like RPA? Sound good? It's an example of a TLA.
It worries me that it's not
Oh, it's not that bad. So you all know what a TLA is? That's a 3-letter acronym. For people who work in an ARE, that's an acronym-rich environment. I could go on, but I won't. That's all right, that's good. So yes, robotic process automation. What it is something that Microsoft put together with the idea of being able to automate actions that are boring and monotonous, that you do all the time. You know, robotic process automation involves automating repetitive and tedious processing within organizations. That's what they say. Because everyone tends to repeat the same things all the time. In the computing world, in the past, often people would record macros to do those sorts of things. Has anyone done it with macros? Yeah. One of the difficulties of working with macros is they're normally application specific. You write macros in Excel, you write macros in Word. But trying to get something that goes across various applications is difficult. So Microsoft put in this robotic process automation feature to allow people to record steps going across multiple applications. Okay. So you could say, okay, I want to record where I do something in Excel, I grab something from the net, I put it into Word, and I take it out to SharePoint, something like that. Okay. So the key components is it does it across multiple applications by recording and repeating the processes. And Microsoft have had this RPA for about a year or so now, and the uptake for it wasn't that great for a lot of reasons. So they decided to change it by introducing the Robotic Process Advisor. Oh, you're not all excited about
This is the flower. Well, is this a evolution of flows?
Is it a what? Sorry?
Evolution of flows.
Evolution of flows, kind of. It's associated with a tool Microsoft has called Power Automate, and it's a subset of that. But the idea behind it is a tool that will come in and robotically go through those steps that a business process analyst would do to help you analyse what's happening within your organisation by effectively recording how people carry out procedures. And then it will allow you to analyse the results of how they carry those things out. So, yes.
So could you have done it smarter, for example?
Beg your pardon?
Is there a smarter way of doing that particular process?
Well, that's part of the idea, is to show you, okay, how different people do things. Which way is the best way? And should we all be doing things that particular way? Okay.
So it means it's track what users doing.
Yes.
Then you can analyze those data.
Correctly, yes, yeah. And these days, because people are in various different locations, the idea behind it is you might say, here's a process. I'm going to get all these people to do this process, and then I'm going to collate the results, which is what a business process analyst does anyway. But rather than me collating manually and going through them all and doing stuff, it will do that stuff for you and help you identify where the slow points are, what are the best practices, and whether you can automate some of those steps. That's really what it's designed to do. It's very much, it's a very, very new thing. It's only been out maybe 3 months at the most at this stage. So it's still in its infancy, but I imagine it's something that Microsoft will build on to a higher extent down the line.
So they already have step recorder.
Yeah, they have a few things. Yeah,
But that doesn't really have
the automation.
analytics.
No, it doesn't have the analytics. Yeah. What they have at the moment, actually, yes, I'll come back to this one. No, wait, I'll go back. So I'll skip that one now. What they have at the moment is really, and the Power Automate, there's 2 elements to it. Power Automate Online, which allows you to automate processes on online tools, so from within the 365 online environment. They also have a feature called Desktop Automation, And desktop automation allows you to do that recording of your steps of what you do on the desktop, okay? And that also can allow you to record your steps from what you do online as well into desktop applications. But this is really looking at a little step further, because this is recording and then allowing you to analyze how people go about doing those things. Okay. Does that make sense? So it's a 6-step process. You really start off by creating a process, setting up a process, what you want to do. You share it out with the people who you want to do this process. It will send them an email saying, you've been invited to do this particular process. And then they follow through and use this robotic process automation tool to automate those particular features and create a series of what are called recordings. So basically records someone doing that particular process. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's the 3rd step, recording. So once it's recorded it, you can go in and look at it, edit those recordings, because they might have steps in there that are, you know, sometimes people record things, they say, I should go here. Oh, no, I should have gone there. Oh, actually, I should have gone there. No, I really meant to go there. So you can go through and edit and delete things that aren't part of the steps. You can also remove sensitive information out of those steps, so if other people view it, they don't necessarily see particular data. I'll show you what that is as we go through. And then you can ask it to analyze that data. So you can go through, prepare the data, ask it to analyze it, and it will create a process map of that information following the steps and the procedures that you put in place to do that. Quite interesting how it does that. And then once it's done it, it will also make some recommendations about where there's steps in the process that you can automate those things. Okay. Using a tool like Power Automate to do that sort of stuff. Okay. I will have this thing for people to have afterwards, but feel free to take pictures of that. Pictures of me is fine as well. No, it's all right. Okay. So it's a 6-step process that you can go through to set these up using a feature called the Process Advisor. If you have Power Automate, the Process Advisor comes as part of that. Robotic Process Automation has only just, I think, been brought into Windows 10 as a standard free feature. Okay, but I think, believe it is now, free for use on that basis. It used to be you could have it for a 90-day trial and then you had to do other things, but now it's free for use. So what I'm going to do is do a demonstration, because that's really what it's all about. Okay, so that's the hard part done. Now we get to the easy bit. This is me going for a demonstration. So give me a moment and I will play around with a couple of things. There we go. Okay. So here I am in Power Automate as part of Office 365. Okay. Have any of you used Power Automate before? A few of you have. For those of you who haven't, what do they say? Take care of what's important, automate the rest. Yeah. Power Automate really comes with a number of preset templates that you can use to automate processes through online environments. If I went to my flows here, this used to be called Microsoft Flow. By the way, they changed it to Power Automate because Microsoft decided to call everything Power something.
Everything's Power.
And then I went to them, I said, so what about PowerPoint? And they said, no, that's not the same thing. That was from the old days. But anyway, so if I go to flows and if I go to a new flow up here, you'll see it will talk about cloud flows and desktop flows, okay? Because cloud flows are ones that work with 365 environment online, desktop, working with things that you're doing on the desktop through what applications you have stored in the desktop, okay? So I can do those through there, but I'm going to skip through that down to this tool down here called the Process Advisor, okay? So the Process Advisor is this new tool they've added in specifically for that purpose, okay? If I went to create in the Process Advisor, it would allow me to create a process which I could then share out with people, okay? And you'll see that Microsoft says, okay, yep, we can take you through the steps you need to do. 1, start a process. 2, record it. Done, excellent. So that's pretty straightforward. So recording processes, why do we need to do them? Well, because we're dealing with people here, folks, okay? And people are notoriously unreliable. Computers, very reliable. People, don't get me started with people, all right? But Yeah, let's just take a simple example. If I was working in something like Excel, and I just wanted to do something really simple, like just add up a few figures, you know, and I might have some figures in here, and I want to add them up. And you'd think this would be simple, right? But my experience has told me that not everyone works the same way. And some people might just come up to the top here and say, I'll do an auto sum, there it is. And then some people will say, well, hang on, I better write a formula here, equals A1 plus A2. Oops, I made a mistake, I better go back. Why is the equals and the plus sign on the same key? And they go in A2, and then they go plus, and they go A3, and then they press enter and they say, oh, that was easy. And then some people would say, well, I don't trust these computers at all. I'm going to out and get my calculator. And you're going to laugh, but this is not wrong, okay? And I'll find the calculator and I'll say, okay, well, what were those figures again? Let me see, I want to do 45. I won't continue with this, but you get the idea, right? So I might, as a manager, say to my people, add up all these figures, and I know that I can use an auto sum and it should take them about 5 seconds. And I'm wondering why I come back in 20 minutes time and they're still trying to add up these figures. And I'll say, don't you know about this? And they say, no, about what? Because you can assume that people have a certain amount of knowledge in what they're working with. Okay. So going out to people and saying, okay, can I get you, here's a document set up, a template of information. I just want you to go through and add up all the figures, put the total down the bottom, do something else for me. I'll get you all to do this work. Everyone goes and does it, and then you come back and look at the results. And you can work out which is the best way to do it and whether particular people are in fact struggling with that particular thing. And look at organising either additional training or other things to get them on the right track to work with those sort of features. Okay. For instance, if I go back into my wonderful world of wherever I am here, so the process advisor, if I go into my processes, I have a couple I've been working on. I have one here called add a list of figures, because I did send this out to a whole variety of people. Okay. Let's get the process. Yes, I've done that. Yes, analyze the process. It's recording fine. So I might have organised a number of contributors here. So these are people who I might have sent an invite to say, can I get you to go through and add up these numbers for me? And they've gone through, and you can see that I've done a couple of the other people have done them in the last few days. Okay, so they've worked through this information. If I wanted to check what anyone had done, I can go on to having a look at their activity, and that will show me the steps that they've gone through to do this information. So you'll see in here they've gone through and they've asked to create a file. If I click on any of these steps, it's going to give me details on the right and a screenshot of where they actually clicked on the screen. Okay. And you'll see down the bottom it says delete screenshot, because you can, like I said, delete sensitive information or those things out of there if you don't necessarily want people to see that. So then eventually they went through and searched for an application called Excel, and then they ran Excel and they got into a blank workbook. And then they went through and started to type in text or type in information. And then in this case, looks like they did a formula, because I can see here on the right it says text to send equals. So they typed in an equals in there to put this information. And then they went to particular cells. And anyway, I can follow through the steps of what they've done in here. Okay. So I can see the steps that they've done. I can go back from here and I can say, okay, well, let me have a look at the analytics of that, because it will go and look at all the ones that people have done. And it will say, yeah, okay, let's have a look at this sort of. Of course.
Get to that stage in getting people to actually do the reporting. How much learning they have to get to that space to record what they're doing?
Okay, the learning they'd have to have is you would have to have given them an instruction about what you want them to do in that process. And usually in organisations, they would have some sort of process for people to follow, or depending on what you're trying to do. And in some cases, if I'm trying to gain a level of knowledge to do what we call a TNA, a training needs analysis, I might set them a job. So say, okay, open this file and do these figures. Is that what you meant? Or
No, so I understand that giving them the task part, but to actually get the reporting, what
Yep.
do they as the user have to do
Okay.
to record that process?
Okay, so what they have to do is they'll get an email, and in that email it will say, click here to record. And they click there, as you'll see in a moment, they'll get a little recording box that comes up on the screen. on the side of the screen, and then they go through and do the actions. I'll record one in a moment to show you. Okay. But this is the analysis of those particular ones that people did. Okay. So what it's done in here is it said, yep, okay, we've got 5 people who started off by creating a file. That's good. That's what I asked them to do. That's pretty reasonable. And then after that, 4 of them went through and added data. 1 of them went straight into the calculator by the looks of it. And then they went back and added data. Oh, okay. And then they came back to the calculator again. Well, that's fine. You know, I mean, people do all sorts of weird things. And then in here, 2 of them summed the values. 1 of them added them up by A5 plus A6 plus A7 plus A8. And 1 of them just copied and pasted the results from the calculator in to get to the end. Until you've seen this, you're going to laugh, but trust me, you know, this will happen. Okay, so what are we left with? We can see that this particular step here took the longest time, actually creating the file, putting the information in by the looks of it, because it does color code. On the right, there's a little legend up here that will give you ideas of information. So the thicker the arrow, the more people use that particular technique. Okay, the darker the color, took more time to complete that part of the process. And what this actually is, if any of you, did any of you go to the Power BI session earlier today? So this is actually Power BI. What you're looking at here is a Power BI report, okay? Because you'll see on the right, it allows you to filter for information. It's showing me in here the average time for carrying out different actions. The average is done by particular people. It will talk about variance, different ways people vary this particular action to get to where they got to. And by clicking on these, it'll take a little bit of time, but it will actually filter the data for me and show me what happens in there. In the fullness of time with the wind behind it, it depends on the speed, but it will filter for those variants. I'll still talk while it's filtering. Okay, so there we are. So you can see how it's looking through it, filtering that data and saying, well, variant 2, these were the speeds taken for this. These are the steps in here. I can see for that variant, the one that took the most amount of time was actually adding up the data, putting the data in. Okay, creating the file took less. So that's what I'd expect. The longest time was actually writing in the numbers into that particular process. So yes, you can go through and break down the analysis of each of those features, either by who recorded it, by the type of recording, by the variance, all those sorts of things. And it's pretty good, you know, for a process analyst like myself in the past. On the right here, it tells me the average amount of time it took to do this action, but it shouldn't be anything like that long. The other thing that you'll see in here is these little blue markers. So these indicate areas where Microsoft thinks we could speed up the process by using an automated feature, okay, by using something like Power Automate to automate some of these steps, okay. So it may mean that, okay, if I go up the top here, this is still in preview mode, but there's a choice at the top that says automate activities. And if I click on that, it will come through and say, well, I'll start a automation for you. These are the sorts of things that you may want to do here to automate this process. And what it's listing on the side here are a series of actions that you could carry out to automate this process. So I'm not really going to go into how Power Automate works here because that's a whole different world, but that's essentially what it's talking about doing there. Okay, I'll get out of that flow and go back to Process Advisor. So this is an example of one that's been done where various people have come in to do those particular actions. Okay. I have another one here which is a little bit more complex. If I go back to my processes, which is to really look up rates online for converting Australian dollars to US dollars in a particular template. Okay. And if I look at that and I go to one of these actions in here, you'll see that within the actions in here, as well as what the steps are, it also is showing us here what application was used. So you see they were using Excel, and also they used Edge to go online to find the latest rate of American dollars, and then copied and pasted the information in. It's effectively what they've done there. But once again, these are things where if you wanted to follow their process through, clicking on any of these will show you the steps they went through. This is just how they went through to open the file. And then going to particular cells. Oh, they use a concatenate function. Oh, wow, I haven't seen one of them for years. All right. See, it's interesting, you know, I haven't done concatenate for a long time. Actually, I better have a look at that process. Sorry, I just got sidetracked by my own process there. Someone's obviously added something since the last time I looked. Let's go back and have a look at the analytics. Of course, as we all have really fast internet services in Australia, all of this is really quick, you know. Does anyone know where we rank as a country in terms of speed of internet access? Yeah, it's not the fastest. I don't think it's that far down, but depends on where you are. Reminds me of years ago having to wait for files to open on computers, you know. Or, you know, you switch on the computer, go make a cup of coffee and come back. Hundreds of years ago.
Try to turn it on and off.
Yeah, turn it, yes, yeah. That usually works.
It's got half an hour.
Yeah. All right. So this is interesting because I'm having a look at this and I can see that some people used a formula to combine the columns, like that concatenate function. But some people use something called flash fill. Does anyone know what flash fill is? A couple of you do. If you don't, do an Excel course. It's really good. But obviously, if I do it by flash fill, it takes less than a minute. If I do it by that concatenate, you know, write a formula to do it, it's taking them 1.5 minutes to do that, to write the formula. Get the exchange rates all right, convert to US dollars. Okay. So, and this is the thing, is if you invite other people in to add to the process, when you go back, you might find that you need to update it because new things have come in since the last time we looked. So this is the end result of what you get. So how do we get to that stage? Well, we actually have to record the process. So I'm going to create a process now in Excel, like that very simple one, just to say to add up figures, which is, you want to keep it simple to start off with, otherwise we'll never finish this part of today. But I'll show you how a process will work if you want to set one up. So if I'll go back to my old friend, the process advisor, I'll go to create. And I will create a new process. Let's see. Let's see. Add Excel data. V2, that'll do. Okay. You could put a description in here to make it obviously easy for you to understand what this is about, although that sounds pretty good for me. So I will go and create a process. So at this stage, once I've created it, it will give me some choices. Share the process with other people. So I can send it to other people to say, please follow this particular process through. Okay. I can add a recording. I can view all the processes. I would normally start off by doing a recording to start it. So there is a recording in the system to work with. Okay. So I'm going to add a recording. So when I go to add a recording, one of two things will happen. If you've already got the robotic desktop automation feature installed, it will start the process. If not, it will give you the option to download it at this point. Okay. I'll open the desktop. Yeah. And then it will ask me to sign into my account for added security.
That looks familiar.
Yeah.
Who has single sign-on?
Send you steps to your form.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is only one step, thank goodness. 2-step. Yeah, okay. So this is actually the desktop recorder. Okay, that's this tool sitting in the middle here. So I can move that around where I want. And this is what would happen for someone if we sent the email. They'd click on there, it would bring up the desktop recorder, or it would say you need to download it at this point. Okay, it's a free download. Anyone can get it. So if I click on record, it's now recording everything I do across whatever application. So you'll find if I go down, you might notice as I move around, I get these little red areas. So it indicates it's detecting where you are in carrying out your actions. So I might go down the bottom here. I've already got an Excel file open. I'll click on that one. And you'll see when I do, on the right-hand side here, it's recorded that step. Might be a bit hard to read, but it says, process in UI on Book 1 Excel running window on screen, quick launch bar. It also comes up with a little rubbish bin here. So if this is not the step you wanted, you can always delete it as you're going through and say, oh, hang on, forget all about that. You can also add comments if you want to say why I did this and that sort of stuff. All right, so I'm going to create a list of values. I'm going to click in here. You see it's put a little red marker around it. And it will say data item D1 on screen. I'll put in a number in here. Send keys 23. Press enter to go down. I'll put in 45. Press enter to go down. I'll put in 55. Press enter to go down. And then what I want to do? Well, what should I go for? Should I use the, I'll use the calculator for this one, I think. So I'm going to go down here. I'll click on there and I'll look for the calculator. There it is. So I'm going to pull up the calculator. There we are. And I'm going to ask it to do 23 plus 45. See, some of you probably didn't even know there was a calculator on the computer, right? There's my figure. I'll highlight that. I'll copy it. I'll click in here. I'll paste it in. There we go. That was easy, wasn't it? And pretty quick and efficient. Yeah, but they don't know that, all right? So that's fine. Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. That was done deliberately to see if anyone's watching, okay? So now it's saving the recording. Saving the recording.
Calculated wrong.
Beg your pardon?
Your result is wrong.
Yeah. Well, have you ever worked with people? They often make mistakes. Oh, no.
No, you use that calculator.
Yeah, because I didn't pick the right figures. I missed one of the figures out, which is why you don't want to use the calculator to do this sort of stuff.
It's not computer.
So, because if it's the finance person, definitely they check it 2-3 times.
Yes.
And then using another calculator as well.
Yes, they would do the sum, then they get their calculator to check it a second time, obviously, yeah. Yes, they check the figure down the bottom. Obviously so, yes. Which is why it would take me 10 seconds of the process, it would take them 10 minutes to do the process, right? But it depends on what area you work in and how important statistics are. So like the old thing, you do a report for 10 years, and then someone points out that you've done something wrong and you've been doing the wrong thing for 10 years. So all the figures have been wrong for 10 years. What do you do about that? It's a moral question, isn't it? Do you go back and say, look, all the stuff I've sent you for the last 10 years is wrong? Or do you just fix it in the next one to see whether anyone actually reads the reports? No, I'm joking, obviously. All right, so now I can go through if I want to and view the recording. I'm just going to close out of this launch box.
So can the user, so can the person who you've asked to do the recording, can they check their recording before they send it to you?
They can check it, when we were viewing the recording up on the screen, and they can view their own recording, but they can't view anyone else's recording. Only the person who organised it can see all the recordings. They can see their own, they can go back and edit their own, they can delete their own. They can do multiple recordings. Not a problem with that. Okay, so if I go back and have a look, in my processes in here, you'll see there's my add Excel data, owned by me, created, yep. If I go and have a look at that, then you'll see I've got one recording in here. At this stage, I could, and usually I do one recording like this, then I would share it out with other people. Okay, share it out with someone else. Yep. Pick someone. Actually, I should probably share it with you, Billy, because I probably need you to do some of this at some stage. Someone who actually can add up figures, so that would be good.
Awesome.
Which one do you want to be? I'll take that one. Yeah, that will do. Yeah. So, and as you see down the bottom, there's an option to say email an invite to the new users. So they would get an invite to say, you've been invited to be involved in this process. Okay. They get involved in the process. You can set up whether they're a contributor or a co-owner. Co-owner obviously can see everyone else's contributions and can do the analysis of it, but a contributor can only contribute. They can't do the analysis I was doing before. Okay. So I can share it out to people. That's all fine.
Bill, will this work across non-Microsoft applications? Obviously, we're saying it there in the calculator.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah, well, I could have gone to the web and picked up something. I could have done it in Adobe. It's really recording off the desktop and through the web.
Yep.
So, yeah, it doesn't matter which way you go. Okay, done those. So I've now got extra contributors. I've got my owners up here. I can see this one that I did. You might see on the right-hand side, it does say, oops, ready to analyze, no, and status not analyzed. So it's not ready to be analyzed because I haven't reviewed it as yet. And I need to do that because you've all told me that I've got it wrong. So, yeah, that's all right. So these are the steps that I went through. Okay. And what you, as the process analyst, normally would need to do is to group the steps. Okay. Into what are in this process. That's the one manual thing that's still in here. There's a choice up the top to what they call add an activity. And I can name the activity. You know, it might be in this case, what's the first one? Open file. So that's an activity. These first few steps, click on there, click on Excel, they're opening the file up. I get to here, I might be adding in another activity, which is to add data. I'm adding my data. What am I doing here? Oh, that's right. And then in this one here is when I'm, of course, in the calculator. There's all my steps, calculator, 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 calculator. And then finally, I copy and paste the information in. So I'll add an activity there to paste that. And then my final steps. So in order to allow this to be analysed, you have to group the information. Once you've set up the groupings that you've used, then any other recordings that come in, you can use the same groupings or you can add other ones in. Okay. So I put in the groupings, I can ask it to save that and make it ready to analyse. So it's really only saying I've finalised this particular process. I've checked all the information, that's okay. And I know it's wrong, that's fine. Get over it, things will get wrong, okay. All right.
You need some training, Bill.
I do need some training. I should go. I wonder what Excel course would be good for me. I'm pretty good with a calculator. Oh, no, I'm not good with a calculator. Do we run a course on how to use the calculator? No. All right. Fine. So you can see in here, here is my recording. It says not analysed. Up the top, I have an option to analyse the information. And that will analyse that recording. How long it takes to analysing? Well, depends on how long it is. That's why I've kept it kind of short. It has analysed it. It says yes. Status analysed. So if I have analysed the information, and that's pretty good. Actually, no, it's still analysing up the top here. It's still taking its time. Analysing. Time for another dad joke? No, probably not. There we are. Done it. So once I've analysed it, you'll get an option for analytics up the top. I click on there, and that will give me the analysis of that particular step. I've only got the one step in there at the moment.
So do you have to manually go and group every recording?
Yes, that's the one thing that is still manual in the process. Yeah, it'd be good if you didn't, but it's not really going to know how you're grouping the information. That's the problem. That's why you still have to pay me the big bucks as a business process analyst to do this work. You know.
Nice if it could just learn under.
Yeah, it would be nice if it could learn. I agree. You know, I agree entirely. because they call it robotic process automation, but it's not quite, not yet. But I think that's, like I said, this is fairly new application for it, and maybe that's something that we will automatically group by application. If you do multiple applications, don't know. But that's what it's showing me. At the moment, most time it actually took in here was opening the file, which was slightly slower than using the calculator. Although the calculator had by far the most steps. Okay. So at the moment, I've only got one variant. I've only got one recording. Adding other people in, and if they did the recordings, this would add up in here. For each of those, once I had new recordings, I would need to go in and ask it to analyze them, and then I could run the analytics based upon that information. But that would effectively do that process. So look, I'm showing you the Process Advisor, A, because it's new, B, because it's something that will probably become more and more what you need to use because you won't have people in the one place. And it's very difficult. You can get like 10 people in a room like this and say, okay, let's work out what our best process is, what the best practice of the organisation is. Let's do this as a group. But that's sometimes hard to do if you can't get the people together. But you can say to people, let's all work through this process. Show me how you work through the process. And then you can put the results together to analyse that information. And then say, okay, well, looking at this, I think this is the quickest way to do it, or this is the most efficient way to do it, or this is the one that gives us accurate information to do it. And maybe that's the tool to use for putting those things together. Okay. So that is basically what the Process Advisor does. Okay. And I think that Microsoft will grow it because they've only just put it in, partly, I think, to give them more of a use of that robotic process automation feature because it's being used a bit, but not a huge amount of organisations yet. But it does combine together that with being able to give you a processing tool to be able to check for best practices and to check for bottlenecks within an organisation.
Once you've actually got like the best process that you've defined in there, can you extract that and all its pictures and everything?
And just say, can I just put that into a Visio process? Not yet.
That's what I wanted.
That's what I would like. Yeah, but the way that things go with online tools, I'd say check back tomorrow, because no, seriously, as you know, I mean, updates come out quite regularly. This is a new tool that's been here for about 3 months. Okay, so where it will be in 3 months' time, I don't know.
Because you're capturing some really good stuff.
Yeah.
And then you really just, instead of, recreating it, you really want the tool to be
To export it out, yeah.
And basically dump into your work instruction or process or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's already captured the process.
Yeah, especially as I know that the data they're putting in the analytics is going to Power BI. So the data is somewhere in the background. And even if it's just as data, you can put that into Visio and convert it into a Visio diagram because Visio will convert across from the data. What's that?
Can you screenshot the instruction?
Yeah, but screenshotting is, it's okay, but it's better if I could just take the data out.
Yeah, because when you're clicking on it, you're seeing a snapshot of the picture of what they've actually done.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, and the nice thing of this part is you can filter by the information and check out which works best, which doesn't work best, and all of that. So as an interactive tool, whether you can export this information into Power BI and to go up into like a Power BI site, I don't know as yet. But it's
must be going to go that way.
I'd say it would. I mean, it's a bit like in Teams where you might want to put Power BI in Teams. It's not there as a tab yet that you can edit. I don't think it's a bit.
You can add. Yeah,
you can.
BI straight in as a tab. Yeah.
You can. Yeah. Well, you couldn't a while back. So yeah. So I imagine because it's using that Power BI back in.
So I shouldn't get too excited.
Well, it all depends on what your level of excitement is, for these sorts of things. I wouldn't get too excited, but I'd get some excited. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's sorry. Question.
Microsoft's got like the data's there behind the scenes, but Microsoft haven't really slid the door open yet to access it by the looks of it. So
I guess like a lot of things, they're getting you excited. They say, look, you can do all this sort of stuff, and then they say, and now if you want to do that, you have to get No, I'm joking.
And then it's like, and you go, okay.
So
But, you know, But the thing about it is what they're trying to do is adapt to an environment where the way things used to be done is no longer able to be done easily in that way.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like working with insights and a lot of those other tools that they put into teams as well. It's trying to say, okay, we're trying to help you. We're just not sure what the best way to provide that help is, but you can give us feedback on that. And that's what, you know, you can do is give feedback and say, love the process advisor. Is there a way I can take it out into such and such? Can we do that? That's all you can do.
Very soon there will be a connector because at the moment they're working lots on connectors.
Yeah.
And use the flow and different connectors.
Yep. Yep.
Then you can export it to other.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because they now have Visio. They have Visio connections into SharePoint and Visio connections into Power Automate as well. So, you know, and Visio Online is just coming out. Has just come out now. I think the full version of Visio Online to use. So watch this space, like all this sort of stuff.
Can I just a suggestion, if you are wanting to go through a step process and export it to another document, that thing I mentioned at the start, Step Reporter already lets you do that, and it exports it in edited Word.
Yeah,
Document,
yeah.
It gives you screen grabs and
Yep.
it gives you the same step processes.
Yep.
And it's across applications and all that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do.
Which is why in the recording, I would have thought they would have place, you know, when you're in the recording part, to do something with it.
So when you share this, what options do you have to share it? Do you have to share, when you share your recording, do you share it as a link to the space, or is there another option to share it as a copy of the document?
The only option that I've seen to share it is as an email at the moment. So, you know, if I go to share, if I'm sharing the process, not the recordings. So I'm sharing the process to other people, then they get an email to say, click here to record your actions. If I wanted someone else to access the recordings in here, I would have to make them an owner. So then,
Into the system to access.
Then they can like.
yep, that's right. Then they can access all the recordings associated with that particular process. But you'd have to give them owner level access. Okay. Otherwise, as a contributor, they only see their own recordings. All right. We pretty much run out of time, but that's the sort of day it is. Hopefully you found that interesting. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the next session because that's hybrid stuff with Julie, right?
Yes, that'll be good. Obviously break now, time for a break. And,
Yep.
grab yourself a tea, coffee or something. And,
Yep. How long a break have I got now, Billy? You know?
depends on the sessions as well.
Take a break. I'll be running a session later called 365 Fusion, about 4:30. If any of you are still haven't already gone for drinks, but you know.
3:30 is the next one, 3:30.
Next one's at 3:30. Yep. Okay. So toilet breaks, good time for that. Yep. Okay. And for you people online, thanks for your attendance. See you again later.